We are no one. We are everyone. And we are invisible. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
We convinced ourselves that they were gone, but they were just hibernating.
Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
They came for everybody. All police.
Are we safe?
I guess we have ourselves a reckoning.
What are you two talking about?
Oh, nothing. Just the end of the world.
Hi everyone, it's Charlie. HBO just dropped the first official trailer for the Watchmen TV series that's going to start airing episodes this fall. So I'll explain what's going on, when it's probably actually going to premiere, all the Easter eggs and imagery. Most of you either read the comics or you saw the movie, so you have a broad familiarity. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Obviously, this isn't airing episodes till the fall, but there'll be another big trailer at Comic-Con, and then we'll learn a little bit more about what's going on with the series. It'll be a really good, solid series to tide us over in between Game of Thrones prequel seasons, because the Game of Thrones prequel won't start airing episodes till sometime next year. But this is taking place 35 plus years after the events of that movie. It's set in present day, but it's in the obvious alternate history where Dr. Manhattan left into self-imposed exile. Then eventually at the end of that story, they found Rorschach's journal, so they learned the truth of what Adrian Veidt Ozymandias had done. But you get the idea, it's kind of this darkest timeline because of what happened with Dr. Manhattan and superheroes. So at the beginning of the trailer, you see the cult of Rorschach's. It seems pretty clear that they're learning from Rorschach's journal. The words that are scrawled behind them in the church where they're having their meeting there is Psalm 65. It says, "Praise waiteth for thee, O God, in Zion." Probably a reference to Dr. Manhattan, because obviously he's the most important character in the series, but as of the end of the Watchmen comic book, he leaves Earth to go into self-imposed exile. If you're a big comic book reader, there is an explanation for where he goes and what he's doing, but because the Watchmen comic books are part of the DC comic book universe, I think this Watchmen TV show is only going to be drawing from Watchmen canon, and it won't be doing any of the DC Comics crossover stuff. So if you've been reading Jeff Johns' Doomsday Clock Watchmen storyline, I don't think they're going to be doing any stuff like that. Like Superman isn't going to show up and face off with Dr. Manhattan, even though that would be a badass series to watch Henry Cavill's Superman duke it out with the Dr. Manhattan, even though Dr. Manhattan is way more powerful than Superman. If you've forgotten the original ending of the story, so the comic book ending is a little bit different from the ending in the movie, but in the comics, Ozymandias wanted to get the people of Earth to start hating Dr. Manhattan instead of just worshipping him like the god that he was. He wanted to get Dr. Manhattan to leave Earth of his own free will, so in order to get the public to turn against him, he summoned a massive Leviathan to destroy New York City. A whole bunch of people died, and he found a way to make the disaster look as if it had been caused by Dr. Manhattan. His plan worked. Dr. Manhattan had become so dissociated with the human condition that he couldn't identify with people anymore, so he goes off to explore in the universe in alternate dimensions. You have to imagine that his powers continue to evolve. He can do pretty much anything you can imagine. He can manipulate reality on the molecular level, so he can travel between dimensions.
Goodbye, Laurie.
What happened was, though, is that Rorschach found out what Ozymandias was doing and started writing about it in a journal as he was studying him. He wasn't able to stop the disaster, but the journal, which he wrote all of his notes and his evidence in, was sent to a newspaper. The newspaper published his journal. That probably led to the development of this Rorschach cult. So like at the end of the trailer, Don Johnson's character says, "Oh, nothing's happening, it's just the end of the world." He talks about a reckoning that's coming. Doomsday is coming. You also see a lot of clocks counting down to midnight in the trailer. Clocks are very important iconography in the story of Watchmen, so I'll explain what the clocks mean in a second too. But effectively, the reckoning they're talking about is the public learning the truth of everything and being open revolt. Because before the end of the Watchmen comic book series, what happened is that superheroes and costume vigilantes had been outlawed unless they worked on the side of law enforcement. So you can see Regina King dress up in a vigilante uniform and pummel the crap out of someone, but she puts a sheriff's badge on, so it's almost as if she's leading a bit of a double life. But remember that anybody that wants to be a vigilante has to be a part of the police department, so we'll see what's going on with her character. Because based on her age in this, she would have been a little girl during the events of the original Watchmen story before Dr. Manhattan left Earth. You also see Tim Blake Nelson's character. He's also a bit of a psychopath, a comedian type character, but he's a police interrogator, so I'll explain him in a second too. The reason why clocks are important is because within the original Watchmen story, there's this clock that they show between each of the chapters, which is slowly counting down to midnight, and it's called the Doomsday Clock. The Doomsday Clock will run out when Ozymandias' disaster will happen. So Doomsday is that big Leviathan event in the comics. Obviously on the TV show, it was more of a bomb meant to mimic Dr. Manhattan's energy signature, but it's the same basic idea. So when you see all the different clocks in the trailer counting down to midnight, it's sort of like they're counting down to another doomsday that's happening again. Because the theme of the series is that nothing ever really ends. Don Johnson's character says they're getting ready for another reckoning, just people learning the truth of everything. So it all sounds like it's building towards the return of Dr. Manhattan, God coming back to planet Earth. The other reason why clocks are really important to the Watchmen series are because Dr. Manhattan's father was a watchmaker who would talk to him about the importance of time. He says, if time is not true, then what purpose have watchmakers? When he gets into the accident that gives him his powers, right before his body gets ripped apart, he pulls a pocket watch out of his pocket and says, good as new. Then later at the end of that chapter, you see a pocket watch on the old cover of a Time magazine, and it's frozen at the exact moment that the atomic bomb hit Hiroshima. So it's no coincidence that you see someone pull out a pocket watch during the trailer and you see these other clocks counting down. Even at the end of the trailer where they show the HBO logo, the Watchmen logo, you see the O in the HBO get stuck in the 5 minutes to midnight position, as if it's getting ready to hit that doomsday time. In this shot, it seems like Don Johnson's character is the captain of the police department because it's 35 years later and Jeremy Irons is playing an older version of Ozymandias. It's possible that some of these other older characters are older versions of vigilantes from the original Watchmen series, but we'll see. But he's addressing them, saying that we thought that these people were gone, but they were just hibernating. He's probably talking about the cult of Rorschach because they're fighting them later in the trailer. You see this monument that looks like the Washington Monument, but it's been changed and it looks a little bit more like Dr. Manhattan's hydrogen atom symbol. If you don't know why Dr. Manhattan tattooed that symbol on his forehead, it's actually the depiction of a hydrogen atom. He says that he admires its simplicity, so he adopts it as his iconography, as sort of his hero symbol. You get a better shot of Regina King in her vigilante uniform. The name of her character is Angela Abraham, and her character description just reads, fiercely intelligent, unapologetically independent. Her style is inspired by Pam Grier and Angela Davis, and her wry humor and wit stand out. Hard to pin down as she wears many masks, mother, wife, and a cop. She grew up religious, but has abandoned spirituality for pragmatism. She's somewhat guarded and fiercely protective of those she loves. Tim Blake Nelson's character is called Looking Glass, and he's obviously a vigilante too, working for the police department. His character description makes him sound like kind of a psychopath. So it says, a good-looking cop, the native Oklahoman isn't simple as his rural accent makes him appear to be, a top interrogator and behavioral scientist. He may also be a bit of a psychopath. It literally says in his character description that he might be a psychopath. So when you see him standing in front of all these changing backgrounds, it seems like he's trying to interrogate someone as part of this Rorschach cult that they're trying to take down. But when Don Johnson's character talks about, we thought that they were gone, and they flash back to this scene here at the carnival with all these dead people, this seems like it's a flashback to Ozymandias' disaster at the end of the original Watchmen comic book. Then you see a much older version of Ozymandias meditating in a fortress that seems in a very remote area. You see a picture of him pushing down on a device here like he's activating something. Jeremy Irons is fantastic, so I think his take on this character will be really cool. You see Don Johnson's police captain character facing off against what looks like the cult of Rorschachs who light up this big field and then start firing giant guns at them. Jeremy Irons' Ozymandias character rides by on horseback past a flag that looks like it's right out of Tales of the Black Freighter, which was the comic book within a comic book The original Tales from the Black Freighter stories that would appear in the Watchmen series were just an ancient tale of things playing out in a very similar fashion to what was happening in present day. If you have the ultimate cut of the Watchmen movie, they actually added the cartoon Tales of the Black Freighter to that, so you can actually watch that entire thing play out.
Delirious from nearly drowning, I saw it. The Black Freighter. The hellbound ship's black sails against the yellow Indy sky.
This hooded character climbing out of the police transport seems like it's supposed to be Pirate Jenny, played by Adelaide Clemens. The funny thing about her character's name is that it was actually taken from a song that inspired the Tales from the Black Freighter miniseries that appeared in the original Watchmen comic book. But the character description just reads, an androgynous and lustful bisexual cop, Jenny is an anarchist at heart. So it sounds like you have a lot of crazy people working as vigilantes for the police department. The whole idea with the Watchmen comic series is that a lot of the superheroes are just as crazy as some of the villains, like you have the comedian. You see a family outside looking up in the sky. It seems like there's a ship crashing through the brush in a different scene. It seems like the original Owl ship. So we don't know if that's them just invoking more things from the original Watchmen series. We don't really know what's going on with Owlman 2 during the course of this, but he would be another really old person too if he were still alive. But like I said, I think the series is building up towards the eventual return of Dr. Manhattan. So if you've been reading the Jeff Johns Doomsday Clock storyline, that's also a story about Ozymandias engineering a plot to get Dr. Manhattan to come back. But like I said, I think the HBO series isn't going to be pulling from any DC Comics stuff. It's all just going to be core Watchmen, Alan Moore stuff. If you're wondering why all the police have those yellow masks on too, one of the big things about the original series is the police got really upset at costume vigilantes because they hid their identities, allowing them to continue to lead normal lives during the day, whereas police could not do that. So it seems like in present day, the police have started to adopt their tactics by hiding their faces, making it easier for them to police the public without fear of retribution when they were off duty. Things are getting pretty bad in this alternate version of Earth, but we'll learn more about this probably this summer at Comic-Con. The fall premiere date is probably going to be sometime either at the very end of August, maybe September, maybe as late as October, but around that time of the year. Let me know what you guys think about this. I think it's going to be a pretty badass series. Watchmen is one of the best comic books of all time. It's perfect for HBO just because it's such a hardcore story. This will not be the CW's Watchmen, so you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. What'll happen is obviously there's a whole bunch of Game of Thrones stuff happening this weekend, so I'll be posting more bonus videos. Leave all your requests in the comments below. While you wait for everything, click here for my Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 5 trailer video, and click here for that brand new Spider-Man Far From Home scene. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.